We welcome you into the Sporting Pod. Coming up, we're going to talk about lessons learned in Italy as Tony Allegretti has returned from abroad and had a chance to check out some very impressive soccer grounds over there. We will do that in just a moment. We do want to invite you to become a member of Sporting JAX. Just go to sportingjax.com. All you have to do is pop on there, enter your information. You can get discounts on team gear, also special invitations to VIP events, and entered in to win contests. Great way to do it. Just go to sportingjax.com. It's absolutely free. While you're there, you can also put down your season ticket deposits if you like for both the men's and the women's teams. Our season ticket deposit list is growing by the day, so people excited about USL Championship and USL Super League soccer coming to Jacksonville. So we are we're dual located today as we record this. I'm in Atlanta. Tony is back from Italy, as we mentioned, missed the last two podcasts. But Tony, while you were over there, although it was largely a personal trip, you were able to check out for business purposes some other opportunities or approaches that some of the different clubs took. So I kind of want to treat this as an audio version of vacation slides.
Right.
So walk us through what you saw over there.
Cool. Thank you, Cole. Working in world football, which I've got a little bit of experience and I'm gaining it every day. One of the things that you quickly learn is that it's a family. And I have a friend who introduced me to a new friend who he and I are really close now, Marco Tegri. He's a great agent. He's a player agent, works a lot with American players that are playing in Europe, but also European players that are going to MLS, USL, etc. And he is friends with Joe Barone. Joe Barone was the CEO of Fiorentina, and I have to pause here to say, rest in peace, Joe Barone. I'm very sad to report that we had a meeting on match day on March 10th, and even though it was match day, Joe Barone gave us a full tour of Viola Park, which is the Fiorentina training ground. They call it match day 0. The day before is, +1 or -1, and the day after is +1, et cetera. And for him to give us time on match day was just amazing. And the actual place itself and the pride that he took in it and the generosity to show me around was it was overwhelming at the time, and it's just so much more meaningful and overwhelming now because every day's a gift. We don't know how long we're here. And I just have to say that I'm indebted to Joe and the family at Fiorentina and Marco for really making this opportunity available. So I'll just jump right in, Cole, if that's cool, about some of my things, and I'll do a little compare and contrast at the end. But upon coming to Viola Park, and everyone that is a Fiorentina fan has access to Viola Park. There's so many things that you can do there. It's a training facility, but it's also a massive convention place. It's got things that you would imagine associated with a stadium development, and it has that, of course. It's got a great 4,000 seat, 3,500 seat stadium with another 1,000 seats on the opposite side of it. It's so well done. It's got the men's and women's buildings with just state of the art. So upon pulling in, you see these bicycles, these great purple bicycles that you can just basically pick up and ride around the whole complex, which is massive. The men's and women's sides of their buildings are identical, so a lot of emphasis on equity, and that's rare in Italy. In Serie A, there's no one really doing that right now. I think they're setting examples, though. I think we'll see a lot of that. There's there's only a handful of clubs in Serie A that have women's teams, and that number's growing. But that's a big emphasis on equity. But there are just like, and I'm going to post pictures on our LinkedIn, on the Sporting JAX LinkedIn, of all of just sort of the amenities and things that were really sort of inspiring. So they have a barbershop, so if you're a player coming into town, or you're need a clip, you don't have to go anywhere. You can just go into the barbershop there. There's a dentist chair. There's the most sophisticated medical equipment that I've ever seen on a training ground. Multiple stages of recovery in the rooms that go along with that. They've got state-of-the-art equipment inside pools, so that you can do some of your PT without impact at all. The gyms are amazing, and all these things are really, just kind of baked in. Everything is pristine, super clean, and one of the things that I really I gotta say too is Joe is really proud to show me this thing that he made. He made this bespoke sort of boot cleaner. So if you're coming off the pitch, which obviously there's pitch right there, and you're coming into the dressing room, there's these great scrubber things that you put your boots through before they get to the boot room, and I'll post all these pictures as well. But that attention to detail, and of course Italians, they don't skimp on design, so everything is just like this sort of idyllic furniture and setup. Every building and sort of space that we went to had balconies and espresso machines and full bars, and the attention to detail in the quality of life is actually just unmatched. Their podcast room, now shout out Gemstone for hooking us up today. It is beautiful. I love this, and I love that we can do it remotely too, because I can put my feet up. But the podcast room at Fiorentina is just, it's exceptional, and they do a lot of media out of it. So there's a whole TV studio, 360, really kind of mimics the WJCT soundstage there, and they do a morning show every morning. So on Italian TV, or at least in Firenze, they'll have a show and they cover the entire Serie A. So it's like a kind of a no holds bars. It's funny because they control the narrative for sure, even though it's a Fiorentina produced show. Really, really cool. Just some other things that I want to mention too. There's a built-in chapel. There's sports bars everywhere, but they're not. It's not all just sort of fun and games. There's a chapel. It's really well done. The design again is just really amazing. There's a huge convention center type thing that overlooks the fields and can host as many as 500 people at a time. So you're talking about a way to bring in fans and get them engaged. They can watch the team, they can watch the first team warm up, or they can watch the Primavera, which is the U19s play in their Premier League for their younger team. Just everything from the kitchen. I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar kitchen. I had the chef pose for a picture, which was awesome. He was really cool. But so again, this is just the most amazing attention to detail. Men's and women brought in. There's the academy lives there, so they've got the housing for the younger folks. All of this, the room, I asked Joe, what's the number one room in terms of demand and rental? And it's the same place that they do their press conferences, which is a really remarkable kind of all digital TV. It kind of feels like you're in Times Square. The ceiling is, branded in the sides and all that. And it was, of course, it was Fiorentina while we were there. But if you wanted to rent that out as a corporation and have an event there, it's perfect for that as well. So this is like some of just the amazing things. In the courtyards and in the gathering areas, there's brick oven pizza things so that you can stay, true to their sort of culinary roots. And it's just it was a really kind of amazing thing. Another thing is the hospitality next to, and again, this is just a training ground. The hospitality next to the 3,500 seat stadium. When we were there, they were playing Roma B, the Roma Primavera team, and it's just a glass wall between you and the field in this bar. And they even thought enough to have the linesmen on the opposite side of the pitch so that you're not obstructed at all. You literally see the game. And again, I'll post these all up on our Sporting JAX LinkedIn. But it was a really it was staggering that the cost of this, which was phenomenal to me. It's only a couple years old, and it was $120 million. I think in the States, put aside land basis, but this would be $500 million in the States for sure. I think they've done a fantastic job, and there's a reason why people call this the best training ground in all of Europe, and I believe it. So,
all right. Yeah. So that's a pretty expansive sort of audio tour you just took us on there. Were there things, and because one of the things we like to do in this podcast is give people a little bit of an insight into what's happening and the thought processes for Sporting JAX as we ramp up. Were there things that you saw that you thought, boy, that would be amazing to be able to incorporate into either a training ground or a stadium or a headquarters for Sporting JAX?
A couple. The first that comes to mind is just sort of the commitment to equity with the women's side, and making sure that our meaningfulness and our investment in the pro team. Our women are going to play in Division I. I mean, they're literally a league higher up than our Division II men's championship side. They deserve it. They, obviously, we are committed to equity on our women's side and our women's team. And so I thought that was one of the sort of big takeaways. Another one, which is a little more granular, is that the bowl of the 3,500 seat stadium, on one side there's a spine of a building, and on the other side of the bowl is another 1,000 or so seats that overlook another training pitch, which is where a lot of times they'll train over there. And so you can still have, 1,000 people go and watch a ticketed match at that stadium. You could have two major matches going on at one time. And that's another thing is every match, even if it's U7 Fiorentina, is ticketed. So this is another takeaway that I really loved, is they all have these membership cards. So get your membership to Sporting JAX, because it will get you places like it will if you have a Viola card, which it allows you into the grounds. And the other thing, and Joe is talking about how that card, it gets you discounts, it gets you to other places, it gets you buy one, get one at certain things. And businesses all over Florence are using that. And I love that. I think that's a really great idea to bring the community in. We have such good sponsor engagement right now that I think that's a real useful idea that we can deploy as well.
I love that as you're talking about that, and thinking about how certain, some sponsors are very public facing. Island Wing Company, obviously, one of our sponsors who is very plugged in and want people to come in and dine and drink and so forth. There are other sponsors that maybe aren't quite as public facing, that you need to be more creative in finding a way to allow that membership to benefit the member with their companies. I wonder if, and I'm putting you on the spot here because we hadn't discussed this previously, but if there's any examples of like not direct public facing sponsors who are doing some things through that membership card with Fiorentina.
Well, I don't know, right away who. One of the things, Cole, is like all of the the medical and healthcare names in town know about our project, very interested in our project, whether it's from sports medicine, et cetera. A lot of that will be infrastructure. You're not going to get, buy one get one on a cast,
Right.
but
Hopefully not.
no, but you could see some, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Benefits that if you are a card carrying, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I'm just totally spitballing here, but some sort of benefit that you get, and like you do, I think the arena's got a really interesting deal with ViStar. So if you pay with your ViStar credit card, you get some amount back. I think it's like 20%, something really significant, and that kind of thing. That's innovative and really engaging, and I think a lot of us are ViStar members, so it's got a big sort of upside all the way around. But I could totally see it, and we already have membership. Sporting JAX is free. It would be a pretty easy, I think, to deploy. How to work out fulfillment on it. It's just some putting some brains together and figuring out how to do that.
One of the other things that strikes me is that Fiorentina is one of, if not the dominant business in that town. When you talk about how many people in the geographic area it's impacting, as most Serie A or any top flight football team is in Europe. Similar in some ways to having a team like the Jaguars in Jacksonville, where it's just so many people are connected through it, either directly or indirectly. What was your impression of how Fiorentina engages with the community based on the level of importance of the club to the populace?
Man, that's such a great question, because we also, this trip for us was 3 generations of Allegretti. Is a big family milestone that we were celebrating. So we took my mom, and my son and I took my mom to a Fiorentina match. We actually sat in the Fiesole curve, which is the sort of ultra section, although there's varying degrees of ultras, as we know. And it was a really exciting match. They drew with Roma. In the end, Roma hit an equalizer. It was a banger of a shot. I felt bad, but the stadium is decrepit. It's mid-century modern, cool kind of design, but very old. And because the city is such a ardent defender of its history, they're making it almost impossible to make adjustments to it, make improvements and investments in the stadium. And I think that was one of the sort of desires of Fiorentina. How do we grow the business? If you've only got a certain stadium, you can't super premium anything. You can't really upgrade to make that to increase revenues in a significant way with upgrades. So they created a sense of place in a different place, and they both feed off each other. I mean, the stadium was packed. The U19 game that I was at was packed. Everyone, and I have to say this too, like from kids to the old guys, they were all taking pictures with Joe. He was so loved. I mean, I'm still just kind of struck by how every day's a gift and how short life is. And so I just want to throw up another couple prayers for Joe and his generosity. But what they've done there is they've created another model and another business column that they can host events that doesn't necessarily have to be football related. They have one of the most premier places that people can gather in all of Florence, and it's a remarkable plan. And I think Rocco and Joe had real vision to do it. Now, I mentioned earlier a little bit of compare and contrast. This is interesting because so many clubs are investing in this, in their training facility, in sort of out of stadium experiences, et cetera. One of the clubs that we visited recently was Nottingham Forest, and Nottingham Forest, they have one modern building that's really just for the first team. The rest of it is over 30 years of being in the championship, or what seems like 30 years. They've really just not invested as a sort of Premier League type institution, and so they've got a owner with a ton of money, and so we'll be looking for it, and I'm sure Nottingham's working on it now. These clubs that are trying to the advantage is you create this new revenue, but the other thing is if a player is deciding whether to go to one club or the other, and one club is really taking care of you and the other has a leaky roof, it's a little bit easier. It tips the scales, so it's something to look out for.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously, there is the decision of just the salary, but also for some, it will be the decision about the experience and how that will go and how you'll be treated and how you'll be remembered, and that sort of thing. And I do think that from a Sporting JAX standpoint, one of the things I think about is being on that first Sporting JAX team has the opportunity for you to be remembered for a long, long time in Jacksonville. And how often do you get a chance to become, the inaugural team, on the inaugural roster? Well, in Jacksonville, there'll be two chances: one the men's team and one the women's team when that time comes. So, looking forward to that for sure. Last thing I want to ask you about, Tony, just in general, because you have been to quite a few cities that have their, where the soccer team is the center of sort of the community culture, and I wonder about how you see these clubs as different in that aspect than in America, where in most cities there are a few that would be exceptions, but there are other major league sports that take some of that focus away. And how much do these football clubs in Europe differ in terms of the way that they impact day-to-day life?
Yeah, I don't think so. It's a great question. I do think there's always going to be differences in the general culture here versus Europe, where there's it's the football team and that's it, and there's not a lot of there's no debate at all on what the flag that's flown is, although every neighborhood has a team, so that part is different. One thing I think, though, in the States is that the American fan culture actually it kind of supersedes the clutter, right? So we know our research with Nielsen, I think it's up to like 280,000 soccer enthusiasts in the market. We know that they're looking for high quality, the highest quality soccer that they can watch. We know that they're coming. It's a little different in that there is clutter, and that, like me and you, we're going to Jags games. We're going to go see the Shrimp. So, but we know that these are other quality of life things that we can do in Jacksonville. I don't see it as competitive because if you're a soccer head, look at the U.S. Open Cup right now and like what's happening, in Vermont. I'm sure there's some Vermont people that go to, New England games or do other things. But there's a demand for just soccer that I think it's different here, but it's not worse. I think it's just that we have a few more options.
Yeah, it's great perspective. I have seen these photos that Tony's been talking about, and really terrific. I think a lot of good lessons could be learned when you start talking about adapting different practices from Europe to the United States. I think there are also best practices that can be borrowed within the United States with other leagues, sports, and teams. So we'll continue to do that as well. Tony, thanks so much. Great to have you back on the pod. We'll have more, of course, next week. And at one point, you and Mauricio and I will all be together on the podcast
we
in
will
the very same place once again.
Get the band back together. I appreciate you.
That's
and
right.
Thank you, and safe travels to the fam.
All right, thanks. That's Tony Allegretti. I'm Cole Pepper. And that will do it for the Sporting Pod. Be sure to share this with your soccer-loving friends and subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts so you'll know exactly when the new episodes come out. For Tony Allegretti, I'm Cole Pepper. Thanks for listening to the Sporting Pod.